There are some things that I am just so scared about. So scared about. One of them is airplanes. Just the idea of airplanes terrifies me. There was actually an entire city that I was just terrified of going to. It was a city that I first started having panic attacks and stuff at, and it was just I really did not want to go back. And I forced myself, and I went back, and it was just as hard as I thought it was going to be. But at the same time, I was a little bit disappointed too, because I had made this into this barrier that I couldn't overcome. And then I did it. In my mind, I had built it up so much from year after year after year of, I'll never be able to do this. And so I just didn't. I didn't even take a step at all. And then now it's behind me. I can go back to the city, and occasionally I'll have like a panic or anything like that, and I'll just stop and I can get through this. Another thing that I'm just scared to death of is tarantulas. I think that they are one of the most terrifying things in the world. I don't like the way that their fangs, their two main fangs, I don't know what they're called. I am not a spider expert, but I don't like the way that they're real big and thick and just scary looking. So what I did is I caught a tarantula myself, and I put it in that cage over there, right there in the background. And it was very terrifying to catch it. And even now it still scares me sitting back there. I've never held it, and I've never touched it with my hands, but it's something. And I don't know if I'll ever not be afraid of tarantulas, but in that cage is a reminder of what I can accomplish, and it's also a constant challenge of what is left to conquer. So that brings me to today's idea. Today's idea is this: don't be afraid to take baby steps. Don't be afraid to take baby steps. And there's two ways this can go. Sometimes we are literally afraid to get going. And then another thing is we are our own worst enemy. We think that we're making too slow of progress, like we have to do it better than we're doing. And so for both of those mentalities, both of those mindsets, I want to throw out the idea: don't be afraid of taking baby steps. So first off, slow progress is still progress. You might say, oh, I'm not making fast enough progress, I'm not doing good enough. Slow progress is still progress. Sometimes in order to build up the momentum that you need to have big progress, you need to start off slow. I mean, think about, cars. As soon as you let off the brake, you're not going 100 miles an hour. But if you give it time and you push the accelerator, eventually you can work up the speed. It's the exact same thing in life. Don't be afraid to take these baby steps, because slow progress is still progress. Sometimes when you're dealing with something every single day, like depression, or, it can be anything. Sometimes we have this idea that if I don't do something big today or tomorrow or yesterday, that I'm a failure. And that's just not true. The thing is, sometimes not giving up today, that's progress. See, in our minds, we're this kind of like, some of us are perfectionists. Things have to be big, they have to be showy, they have to be elaborate. But life oftentimes isn't like that. Sometimes just not giving up is progress. There'll be some times when you are literally at wit's end. You can't take it anymore. And just sit down for a second. It's okay. This is what I've done in the past. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not giving up. I'm taking a time out for a couple minutes. Not for a day, just for a couple minutes. And then I'm going to go again. Just catching my breath. And that's okay. It's okay. Baby steps are still steps. You're still making progress. So, don't be ashamed of how small that progress is. Rather, be proud that there is progress, or even the desire for there to be progress. The idea is not to give up. not to give up. You can build up momentum, you can get going, but the thing is, if you're used to not having momentum, you can't expect to just go from 1 to 10. It's going to take time. And then to deal with the other aspect of the whole being afraid of baby steps is the first step is really the hardest. I know it'll feel like, well, I took the first step and the next step was just as hard. But given enough time, when you look back, you're going to see, oh, it felt like it was maybe even worse than that first step. But now that I have some distance between it and me, I see that it really did gradually, very slowly, minuscule amounts, got less difficult. The first step is always the hardest, being able to have that courage to step out and say, I will. I'm going to do this. And even just being willing to wrestle with it is a step in the right direction. Sometimes anxiety, for instance, this is what I have to do to start winning my fight with anxiety or whatever. And sometimes just the thought of dealing with it stresses us out and scares us. But sometimes that's the first step of fighting anxiety, is just wrestling with the fear of having to deal with it. Like, for instance, the tarantula. Scared to death of them. Even now, I can't think too much about it. Can't look at it. Can't look at it too much. I can look at it, just not too much, especially when it's doing the creepy walk. But there's still that idea of, okay. Which brings me to the next kind of idea here. Do what you can now. Just do what you can. For me, I was scared to death of that tarantula. Every time I thought about it, it was just scary. The first step was just thinking about tarantulas. I watched videos of tarantulas eating things. Creepy, very, very creepy and scary. And it just left me in dry and cold sweats. And so then I started watching videos of them walking around. I went to a botanical garden, which had a bugarium or whatever it's called. And they had tarantulas there, the big ones, the bird eaters. Oh my goodness, that was scary. Because if I'm already afraid of tarantulas, let's magnify this by about 1 billion. Oh my goodness. If one of those things were crawling on me, I think I would literally die. Okay, but anyways, and so I looked at it. Then there came an opportune time. I was going into a restaurant, actually, and it was just out there doing its thing. And so I walked up to it, and I just sat by it and let it walk around by my feet, not on my feet, just close to me. And then I said, you know what? There's no time like the present. And I went and I got a piece of cardboard out of the restaurant's trash. And I scooped it up onto it, and it was so scary because it started doing that thing that spiders do, where it was like sliding down towards my hand, and that was scary. And then I had to do the whole switching, wishing I would have gotten a bigger piece of trash. And oh my goodness. And then just it started doing that thing where it was crawling towards my hand, then sliding, and then oh my goodness. Thank God that tarantulas don't move overly fast. Well, they have spurts of moving fast. But by and large, they really don't move around too fast. So thank God for that. But anyways, so the idea of doing what you can now. That first step is the hardest. And sometimes you're just wrestling with it is that first step. And then, but wherever you are on the spectrum, just this idea, do what you can now. And so the big message of today is, don't be afraid to take baby steps. Don't be afraid of taking those little baby steps. And the verse for today is Proverbs 14:29. It says, "Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly." And I know that sounds like it doesn't really fit, but give me a second. The idea is that sometimes we get really impatient with ourselves, or we get impatient with the struggle, or we get impatient with the problem, or impatient with other people's reactions, or whatever. And we start doing stupid things because of that being impatient. Maybe I'm tired of dealing with depression, so I'm just not even going to try. I'm tired of dealing with anxiety, so I'm just not going to even try. I'm done. I'm just done. See what I mean? Things like that, where it's like that hasty decision, that being quick to wrath. And so I really think that this verse has something to say to us in this. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding. Look, it's all right. It's frustrating. It's all right. It's okay. And it's okay to get frustrated about it, but in that frustration, don't give up. So today's helpful idea, helpful tip, is this: start planning for success. The main message of today was don't be afraid of taking those baby steps. And so the call to action for today is start planning for success. Let's say you have anxiety. Start planning a trip. Start planning a trip to a place that you're afraid to go to. It doesn't have to be big. It can be just an hour-long trip. But whatever it is, taking that step, planning to take that first step. And you're going to lose some sleep over this, because just the stress of having to face it, especially if you're used to not facing it, it's going to take you a while to build that momentum. Or let's say you're just real depressed. Let's say you've been going through depression your whole life, if you're anything like me, and it gets you to the place where you think, you know what, I just don't even want to go out. I'm happier in my house with my books, and I'm okay with that. So instead of that, saying, you know what, I'm going to plan for success. I'm going to host a party or go to a party. You know, have an event, maybe with just one or two people, just where I'm getting out of the house when I don't want to. Maybe I only have one free night off of work, and I'm saying, okay, instead of just sitting on my couch by myself and ignoring the rest of the world, or just sitting on Facebook all day long or whatever, I'm going to take that time instead to go out and try and have a good time. Try and enjoy a little bit in the midst of this storm. Maybe if you are, maybe if you look at porn a lot, just making plans for success. Oftentimes we make plans for our failure, not even realizing it. So with that being said, start making plans for your success. I hope that this video was helpful.